It's 6 o'clock. Good evening. I will call the September 25th, 2023 council meeting to order. Can I have the clerk call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Barber. Absent. Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Ingert.
Present.
Councilmember Forster.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow, absent.
We have a quorum. Could you all stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no presentations or personal appearances, so we'll move right into staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. I would ask Mr. Krast to make a staff report for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Council. In addition to my written report, we did have our annual household hazardous waste disposal event at the Eagle Glen School. I will not have any numbers for a few weeks, but I will be reporting that out at a future council meeting as soon as we receive them. And that concludes my staff report.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Krast. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a staff report for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, sir. I also submitted a written staff report for this evening, but I want to highlight just a couple things. Don't forget, tomorrow night is the last night of the farmers market for the season, right back here behind City Hall at Centerview parking lot, as it's been all summer long. I also want to thank my staff and the volunteers for the last couple events, the Festival in the Park and then the Walter Buck Memorial Fishing Derby that was at Hawk Ridge Park. So we put a lot of hours in there and a lot of volunteer effort, and those events are always great during our fall season. We've got a couple projects still underway. Skate Park is wrapping up. The rack is, if you've driven by Recreation Park or into the park, you see the rack is well underway on that. And we got Trucktober Fest coming up October 6th at 5:30 at Recreation Park. And then after that, we have a couple events later in the fall with our Veterans Day celebration and our craft fair, which we'll announce more details on that. But happy to answer any questions, and that concludes my report for this night.
Very good. Any questions? Yes.
Not so much as a question as a statement is, I'm so sorry about the festival. That last day, everyone was a trooper.
Yes.
So,
Can't do anything about the weather, can
yeah.
you?
Lots of pieces of that out of anyone's control, right? It was crazy.
We do the best we can with what the
For
weather
sure.
gives us, that's for sure.
Any other questions? No. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mustine. They always say rehearse something before you're about to do it. We didn't have the opportunity to rehearse this, but nevertheless, I am going to call on Ms. Armour to make a communications report. It'll be a little bit interactive with the council this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Abdelgawad and members of the council. I am going to ask you to please pull out your cell phones if you have them with you. I know that that is highly unusual, but I want to make sure that you are signed up to receive text updates strictly related to our landfill fight, as we will be ramping things up here. Well, they're ramped up here already, but to the public, they will be ramping up here in the next couple months. So if you take out your phone and put in the phone number 91896, and if you're ready, the all one word RC no landfill. RC no landfill. And once you send that in, you should get a message that comes back to you that asks you to type yes to opt in. So this will be the fastest way to get immediate updates about the landfill, especially when we go back to Jefferson City for the next session. So thank you for doing that. Also, I knew how many people were signed up before I asked you to do this, so I'm going to go check when I get done. And one other thing, just really quick with the Raymore Arts Commission, we had a concert that we had to cancel because of weather, and we weren't able to reschedule that. So we've been working on putting together an event on Friday, October 13th at the amphitheater at 6:30 p.m. We will have folklorico dancers. That's the traditional Mexican cultural dance with the big, beautiful skirts. And we're working on getting a mariachi band and a food truck as well. So we hope that people will come out. But I'm wrapping up the final confirmations of everything, and hopefully in the next couple days we'll start putting that information out to our followers. So that's all I have for you this evening.
That's fine. Thank you. Any questions? So after we text RC no landfill, it did ask us to reply yes to opt in.
Correct.
And then we're good.
And that's the final step. And then you probably won't get a text about it for at least a month. We'll see when our next.
Or maybe not.
We'll see when our next major update is. It could be any time, but you'll be ready so that you'll be up to date. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you, Ms. Harmer. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, just a couple updates as it relates to this project. At the last council meeting, I think I notified you all that staff did a presentation at the MML conference here this month on the 12th in partnership with the consultant that we've been working with, as well as one of my peers from another city in Missouri, to discuss the different processes that each of our cities are going through to do their comprehensive plan, as well as the perspective from the consultant of things that they like to see and don't like to see, and the different processes that they've been through with different cities. And so it was a good presentation, good panel discussion, and actually had a very good dialogue back and forth with my counterpart from West Plains, Missouri. So it was good to see a finished product of what Olson has completed, kind of compared to where we are in the process with our project here. A couple of updates I wanted to provide, kind of a schedule. Last month we took delivery of our first deliverable from our consultant, which was more or less an assessment of the information that we have provided them to date of our draft plan. They identified a handful of gaps of some additional information that they were needing, so our comp plan team today submitted our comments and revisions back to them for their review now, and so they'll wrap up those revisions and incorporate them into the next document that we should receive in mid-October, which is the second deliverable. That will include the entire outline of the plan, as well as all the text that we provided and all the revisions that they've completed for us as well. The next step, and kind of a sidebar, is a more in-depth meeting with myself and Mr. Mustine and Mr. Eppert. One of the tasks that they've agreed as part of this contract is a handful of different, I'll call them development illustrations, but they're intended to communicate the different ideas and types of development that we think the city would like to see on some of the larger undeveloped pieces of land that we have in the city with around the interchange and some of the areas along 58 Highway. And so we'll work to refine those and give them some pretty in-depth feedback on some of those comments as well. Somewhere in between deliverable number 2 and deliverable number 3 is where I'll work with Mr. Fearborn to schedule some type of work session with the council to go over some of the information in depth. The last piece of information that we're waiting for on our first deliverable, the consultant hired, or working with somebody on their team, provided a demographic and economic outlook of the city based on past growth, current activity, and then some of our population projections. So they're set to deliver a set of assumptions based on this plan of how much and what type of development the city can support over the next 30, 25 or 30 years. So we'll look forward at a later date to go over that information in more depth with the council. But at that time, that would conclude my staff report.
Any questions for Mr. Gress? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. Good report. I know you've been working on this project hard for quite some time now, and it's starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. I had a separate question in relation to economic development. The property that was formerly Schlotsky's on 58 Highway, just like to kind of get some confirmation of street rumors. Obviously, the building was painted on the exterior. There were rumors going around that the deal fell through, and I'm not asking who, but do we have a tenant preparing and planning to go in there is my question.
So I can share, because they have filed, I won't say plans with the city, because they're not really doing any remodel on the building other than cosmetic things, but it is a restaurant called Abelardo's Mexican restaurant. There is one, I believe, in Johnson County, Kansas, and then there's one that just opened up as a drive-through only in downtown Lee Summit. So we're one of the first in the Kansas City area. They did paint the building and got a little bit ahead of themselves on their plans. Mr. Warner just completed a hood inspection of their kitchen last week, so they are moving forward. I believe the date they told Mr. Warner was the end of October is when they are hoping to be operational at that location.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder if you were using that for some other time, but I appreciate the update, sir. Thank you.
We were wondering the same thing for quite some time because they got really gung-ho and painted the building and then went dark for quite
Yes,
some time.
sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Anything else, Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Just want to remind the council, we do have a work session next week, October 2nd. There will be 2 items on the agenda. First item is going to be a meet and greet with Chick-fil-A. They are wanting to move forward with all due haste and at the exact location that we had discussed with the council many, many months ago. That deal is close to being complete, and so they will be coming to you just to kind of say hi, give you their vision for working with the city of Raymore, probably talk to you about some of the things that they're going to be needing to go into that location as a first pass. They have not met with staff yet. In that regard, we actually have our first meeting with them on Thursday of this week. Very good group to be working with so far. The second item on the agenda for next week will obviously be the budget for council discussion. That concludes staff reports this evening.
Very good. Thank you. There are no committee reports, so we will move to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to dispose of the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I move that we approve consent agenda items A, City Council meeting minutes for September 11, 2023, and item B, Resolution 2335, the 2022 fire hydrant replacement project, acceptance and final payment.
Is there a second?
Yes, ma'am. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, sir. There's been a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor? Very good. Motion passes. Next, we'll move on to unfinished business. If the clerk will read Bill 3848 by title only.
The second reading of Bill 3848 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Dana F. Cole and Company, LLP, to serve as the independent auditor for the city for a 3-year period.
If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
move that we approve Bill 3848, award of contract auditor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, ma'am. I'll second the motion.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to approve Bill 3848. All those in favor? That's everybody. Motion passes. Oh, sorry. Thanks for the reminder. I get to vote too. I vote in favor.
We don't want to take away any privileges. Madam Mayor.
Multitasking. I'll remember. Thank you, sir. Next up, if the clerk will read Bill 3847 by title only.
The second reading of Bill 3847 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into a non-exclusive public right-of-way license agreement with Google Fiber Missouri, LLC.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3847, Google franchise agreement.
Is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve Bill 3847. All those in favor? None opposed. That's everyone, so that bill passes as well. That takes care of old business, so we'll move on to new business. The first item of new business is amendments to the UDC. Can we have the first reading of Bill 3842 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3842 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the Unified Development Code.
Thank you. This item requires a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, the item before you this evening is a request to modify the Unified Development Code to provide some clarity with some state statutes that have changed, as well as some reoccurring development issues that we've dealt with in the past with regard to existing codes. So I'll go through a little bit of the staff report and then clarify those 6 sections that are included in the bill this evening. In August of 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the 2023 annual report and review of the UDC, as they do every year, and staff identified a handful of minor issues that were of topics of consideration. And at that meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission accepted those recommendations and directed staff to proceed forward with the revisions to the Unified Development Code. Because tonight does require a public hearing, tonight's meeting was advertised in the September 6th edition of the Northcast Herald, and the items of record include the Growth Management Plan, the Unified Development Code, the Notice of Publication, and the staff report. I wanted to touch on each of the 6 sections. Some of them are related and some of them are separate. Looking at the first 3, sections 1 through 3 deal with the provisions for medical marijuana facilities in the city. Right now in the city code, they are specific to medical marijuana. As the council knows, the state statute changed earlier this year with regard to recreational marijuana, and therefore staff saw the need to update the city's code to coincide with what state statutes include. So within, you'll see 3 sections that have been modified. Section 1 modifies the use table within the city, and the bulk of these changes within these next 3 deal with the changing of terms from medical marijuana to comprehensive marijuana, which is medical and recreational. That is a term that was defined by the state, and so a lot of the definitions that you'll see are copied and pasted from state statute for those purposes. Within this, it also adds 2 new definitions that deal with micro-business license, which is a new type of license that the state authorized. Under that section, staff is not proposing any changes to where facilities are allowed right now, so I just wanted to provide that clarification. Strictly as just the definitions and updating those use tables. Again, Section 2 deals with the regulations within the code as they relate to the definitions and modifies those to comprehensive marijuana. And section number 3 modifies the back end of the Unified Development Code, which houses all of the definitions that are found within the Unified Development Code. Section 4 modifies the provisions for privacy fences, particularly those that are on corner lots and residential subdivisions. What we've ran into in the past is when the UDC was adopted, it includes very specific regulations for new fences on corner lots. What we found over the last 2 or 3 years is a lot of the fences in Raymore were built prior to the adoption of the Unified Development Code. And so we've had a lot of residents that have come forward who wanted to replace their dilapidated fence, and in doing that, can't anymore because those fences are no longer allowed. What they deal with primarily is the setback on what is also classified as a front yard. As the council knows, corner lots have 2 front yards, and the setbacks on the outer portion of a front yard, if that makes sense, is sometimes less than that it is in the true front yard where the front door is. And so what we found is a lot of those residents want to keep what they've already established as their backyard. They often have playgrounds or trees or things like that that they're used to. And so more often than not, those residents have to go through the variance process to keep their existing fence. Staff didn't really want to prohibit residents from improving their property. And so what you'll find in this section is as long as the fence as it is currently constructed was allowed under the previous UDC, they are allowed to rebuild that fence in its exact same location as long as they're replacing it like for like or board for board, as we've termed it. So they can't increase the height. They can't go from a chain link fence to a privacy fence. It still must meet all of the requirements that were in place when the fence was originally built. What we are not allowing is any new nonconformities in the city. And so in the couple cases where we've had somebody where they have a chain link fence and they want to build a privacy fence, they do have to bring that fence into the compliance with the code or go through the variance process. So that is the modifications as they have been proposed under the fence code. Sections 5 and 6 are relative to the plethora of vacations of easements that the council has seen come forward over the last several months. Right now, those require public hearings, and staff's research, because utility easements are reserved exclusively for private utilities and not the general public. What we have done is separated out the provisions for things like right-of-way vacations or plat vacations, which do have an impact on the general public, and we've separated those out to their own separate process to where now the the council does not have to hold a public hearing and go through the somewhat lengthy process for something that is typically very simplistic and straightforward. So all 6 of those items are what constitute the 36th Amendment to the Unified Development Code. The Planning and Zoning Commission on September 5th reviewed this item and recommended 7-0 to forward it to City Council with a recommendation of approval. And that will conclude my staff report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, as this is a public hearing, I will now open the floor to comments from the public. Seeing no one coming forward, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion to dispose of Bill 3842.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3842, 36th Amendment to the Unified Development Code.
Is there a second?
Yes, ma'am, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, then all those in favor? All right, motion passes unanimously. The next item of new business is the final plat for Eastbrook at Creekmore. Can we have the first reading of Bill 3850 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3850 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Eastbrook at Creekmore fourth final plat, a subdivision of land located in the southwest quarter and southeast quarter of Section 4, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Again, the request this evening before council is the final plat request for the 4th phase of the Eastbrook at Creekmore subdivision. This is a 43-lot single-family phase that is located on the north side of 163rd Street between Churchill Circle, which is the Westbrook at Creekmore 14th plat, and Branchwood Lane, which is the Eastbrook at Creekmore 3rd plat. It includes, as I mentioned, 43 single-family lots, and it will involve the extension of 163rd Street from its current terminus east to connect with Branchwood Lane, which is generally the easternmost property line of Creekmore with the exception of the lots on Madison. That will conclude my staff report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, if there are no questions, then I will entertain a motion to dispose of Bill 3850.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3850, Eastbrook at Creekmore fourth final plat.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, then all those in favor? That's everyone, so motion passes unanimously. The next item of new business is the Raymore Commerce Center easement amendment. In order to expedite the sale of this property, the mayor has asked for this to be an emergency reading. Can we have the first reading of Bill 3851 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3851 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute an amendment to sewer utility easement from Double G Properties LP and KCI Raymore South LLC, and due to the need to close on the property in a timely manner, the mayor has authorized this as an emergency reading.
Thank you. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Madam. I would ask Mr. Zer to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Fearborn, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Sorry.
Thank you for the promotion.
What you have before you this evening with Bill 3851 is a amendment to a sanitary sewer easement, utility easement that was discovered during the course of developing the Raymore South Commerce Center by the developers and in the course of acquiring the additional property that will be required to do the development there. Originally, there was an easement on the property that did not close by legal meets and bounds description. That was discovered by the engineers. What they are attempting to do is to correct that legal description and to alter the way and the manner of accessing it by city staff and engineering department for future access to it. That would conclude my report. I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, if there are no questions, I will entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3851.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3851, Raymore Commerce Center easement amendment.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, ma'am, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, then all those in favor? All right, that's everyone. So the first reading of Bill 3851 passes. Can we have the second reading of Bill 3851 in its entirety?
The second reading of Bill 3851 in its entirety, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute an amendment to sewer utility easement from Double G Properties LP and KCI Raymore South LLC, and due to the need to close on the property in a timely manner, the mayor has authorized this as an emergency reading. Whereas Double G Properties LP and Rockwell Construction, Inc. entered into a sewer utility easement recorded with the Cass County Recorder of Deeds on November 14, 2005, in Book 2723 at page 453, conveying to Rockwell Construction a permanent right and easement upon and over a portion of certain real property owned by the City of Raymore, Missouri, and whereas the utility easement authorized Double G Properties LP and Rockwell Construction, Inc. to construct, operate, maintain, reconstruct, inspect, and remove a sanitary sewer line included but not limited to associated material, piping, equipment, lift station, and manholes. And whereas the sewer utility easement granted to the City of Raymore the right to ingress and egress to the sanitary sewer constructed within the easement by reasonable routes across the adjoining property of Double G Properties LP. And whereas Rockwell Construction is assigning its rights, title, and interest into and under the sewer utility easement to the City of Raymore to facilitate the construction of improvements on the Raymore Commerce Center pursuant to an assignment of easement agreement dated July 21, 2023. And whereas Double G Properties LP has identified an error in the legal description of the original sewer utility easement, which causes the boundaries of the same to not close, and desires to have the assistance of the City of Raymore in correcting the error and providing a standard for the potential modification of the access route to the correctly described easement parcel pursuant to the terms of the amendment to sewer utility easement attached hereto as Exhibit A. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Raymore, Missouri as follows. Section 1. The mayor is hereby authorized and directed to execute the amendment to sewer utility easement attached hereto as Exhibit A, so as to correct the identified error in the legal description of the original sewer utility easement and to allow for a standard for the potential modification of the access route to the correctly described easement parcel. Section 2. The city manager and city clerk are hereby authorized to and directed to take all reasonable necessary steps to record the executed amendment to sewer utility easement and deliver the same to Double G Properties LP. Section 3, emergency reading. Mayor has authorized this as an emergency reading. Section 4, effective date. The effective date of approval of this ordinance shall be coincidental with the mayor's signature and the attestation by the city clerk. Section 5, severability. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or portion of this ordinance is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision, and such holding shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions thereof. Duly read the first time this 25th day of September 2023. Be it remembered that the above ordinance was approved and adopted this 25th day of September 2023 by the following vote.
Thank you. Question?
Yes, I have a question for staff, probably for Mr. Crass. So in Ms. Hill's reading of the entirety of the bill, she mentioned a lift station. Are they intending to have a lift station on the property, or was that just a catch-all legal phrase because of the sewer easement?
There's an existing lift station on the property
I
that
see.
serves Whitetail Run and will serve a portion of this the Raymore Commerce South development.
So just pre-existing one, because we don't allow those to go in for the most part anymore, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, if there are no further questions of staff, I will entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3851.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3851, Raymore Commerce Center easement amendment.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Thank you. So Bill 3851 passes second reading unanimously. And that takes care of our new business. So now we'll move to public comments. If there's any member of the public who wishes to make a comment, please identify yourself for the record and keep your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. He's shaking his head no. Very good. Then we'll move into mayor and council communication. Starting at that end, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Just a couple things in reference to the amphitheater. I was out there for the concert, Bradley Harris, a couple Fridays ago, I guess. Another big crowd out there. Thank you to Ms. Harmer, Police Department for being up there, making sure everything went well. Another big crowd. Looking forward to the one on Friday the 13th, the night before I leave for Florida. So I'm going to make an appearance there and then catch the plane after that. Secondly, in reference to the household hazardous waste collection, I was up there. I did have a few things. Got up there about 7:30. The line by 7:45 or so went out onto the street through the Circle Drive and out. So there was quite a few people in line for that. Very well organized. I know the city had a truck and a backloader or something up there as well. So very organized event. I think a lot of people take advantage of that and welcome that on a yearly basis. So thank you.
Councilmember Townsend.
Thank you. I have nothing, excuse me, I have nothing this evening.
Councilmember Forster.
Thank you. I just, again, wanted to say thank you for the city and the Parks Department for the festival in the park. I know that was a bit of a change this year, but it seemed to go fairly well when the weather cooperated. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Burke.
Thank you. I have nothing this evening.
All right, we're a quiet bunch today. Councilmember Holman.
I don't have anything this evening.
Very
Thank
good. Councilmember Engert.
Nothing as well, but I would like to thank the staff for putting together a great agenda for this evening.
Very good. All right, that concludes this evening's agenda. So I will I don't have anything. Thank you. Thanks for remembering me. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.